It is Thursday evening, and that means it's time for another look at who Auburn is going to be playing in their next football game. We got Auburn and LSU on tap. It is our preview and prediction show. A lot of interactivity here and a lot of questioning what the score actually might be. Let's get into all of that right now. War Eagle Auburn family, War Eagle E2C Network family, thank you so much for joining us. Whether you're watching live, whether you're watching on the replay, no matter how you got here, if you're on Facebook, YouTube, some other means, we appreciate you being here, being part of our little family within the Auburn family. It is another live stream, and on this edition, we will be discussing Auburn versus LSU. Really excited to get into this one back after a bye week. So much to discuss, and you will dictate a lot of the conversation throughout the show tonight, especially if you're watching live, mainly. If you're watching on the replay, appreciate you being here, but obviously we won't be able to interact with your comments unless you were live. With that being said, you can help us get off to a great start this evening. How can you do that? Well, it's very, very simple. If you'll look on Facebook, if you look on YouTube, you'll find that thing that's called a like button. Looks like this. If you'll go ahead and smash the like button, I'm still trying to figure this out. Like, what just happened? Oh my gosh. And I figured out there's like new things that you can do with. No, it didn't do it again. Anyway, there's new features with this application I use that I guess if you do certain things, it pops things up from time to time. I don't know. That just threw me really off there for a second. Anyway, what a way to start off the show. Smash the like button if you haven't. Hit that share button. Let people know that we're live. We want to have them in here, be part of the conversation this evening. It's always more fun when we have people here, but you can also check in with us too. Go ahead and post where you're watching from, your city, your state, international. If you are international with a War Eagle, want to know who's here hanging out with us and being a part of the discussion this evening. Auburn versus LSU, the Tiger Bowl. As we've said in some of our social media posts this week, there's a lot of significance here every single week. Every single week. During the academic and athletic calendar year. But every single year for this football game, there's a lot on this. More often than not, throughout the last few decades, either Auburn or LSU or both have been a factor, if not vying for the SEC Division Championship and the SEC Championship. So there's a lot that rides on this game every single year. And this is the last time, as we know right now, that this game will be played. So there is significant importance upon this one to get a win for Auburn, for LSU. But what's the score going to be? What's going to happen? We are trying to figure that out tonight. You're going to help us. We are going to do a little bit of discussion about the game, the matchup, some of your commentary. Then we're going to go through some different scenarios, different predictions of how the rushing attack might do, how the pass defense might do, how many punts will we have. Hopefully, when we get to the end of this thing, we will all share our score predictions, which I know that instantly makes some of you go ahead and post them now, I guess. We're going to ask for them at the end. Hopefully, this will help you have a more informed score prediction. For me, it's always very helpful. And in fact, this week, I have gone in about as blind as I have the entire year, simply because of schedule. And just because after a bye week, it's hard for us all to get back geared up right now. So I haven't done a lot of digging into them outside of what we're going to do tonight. Mr. Big Simp in the house. Good to see you. Thanks for hanging out from work. And yes, we hate as well that this is the last time that this one, last year that we're playing them on an annual basis. I think I may sometimes slip up when I'm talking about it. I don't want to indicate that we're not playing them again. That's not the case here. It may seem like that with the way the SEC scheduling works these days. But the good and the bad thing about adding 2 more teams means the SEC schedules have to change. And so with that, we are losing the annual matchup for the foreseeable future with LSU. And we will see them at some point down the road once again. So obviously there's a lot riding on this particular thing. As I said, don't be shy. Let me know that you're here. Some of your commentary about this game. We want to get some of your opinions in on this, but we will walk through a little bit of the pregame stuff behind this. So I think if we're all being honest, let's just say what the narrative is around this. LSU's offense is great. Auburn's defense looks pretty good. Auburn's offense doesn't look good. LSU's defense is surprisingly not as good as you think it would be. Doesn't mean they don't have great talent. Two teams juxtaposed to each other are very just interestingly the opposites in those areas. Which one is going to win? I think in a kind of push scenario where you're kind of matching each other's weaknesses and strengths equally on both sides, you would say the winner, that win would go to whoever's the host, especially in this matchup. And that's probably the smart betting money. Winning in Baton Rouge for Auburn has been at a bare minimum as of late. Thanks to Brian Harsin, we can now say that we have been able to beat them there. I know that pains us to say it, but it is the truth. So we can thank him for that. One of the few things we can do. But winning alone in Baton Rouge is hard enough. But winning at night in Baton Rouge, boy, oh boy, oh boy. That is tough. They are a raucous, rowdy, borderline rude in some areas fan base. I have not had great experience with the general fan base population. Now, I have friends and close family friends and just personal friends that are LSU fans that I will vouch for. You've met one of them before. One of my former pastor from our church when we lived in Alabama was on here last year to talk about the LSU Auburn game. And that's one of the good ones. Outside of that, I've not had great experiences much with LSU fans, few and far between. They are a unique fan base, and it will be a unique environment in Baton Rouge. What's been really interesting for me this week, and this is kind of, again, reminder for folks, this is the part where we're just kind of talking through some of the, stories around the game and things like that. We're going to get to the nitty gritty in just a second. What was really interesting this week for me was hearing Hugh Freeze talk about how important this game is for him since he was once the head coach at Ole Miss. And if you're not aware, I mean, Ole Miss and LSU have I don't know if you could call it a rivalry, but there's a lot riding on that matchup every year for them. Maybe they call it a rivalry. I just, outside looking in situation, I don't typically look at it that way. It's kind of, it's an interesting thing. So with that in mind, Hugh has a lot on this game. We have a lot on this game. They obviously do. A lot riding there. Big Simp says, I say we zone read the rest of the season and keep playing great defense. It'll be hard to stop. Stable of backs, ball control, and defense always wins games. That's not necessarily true, Big Simp. Doesn't always win games. If that were the case, that amazing defense we had in 2019 would have won more games. But it does put you in the best possible position if you have a great defense, which is why Auburn has not been blown out. Now, you would say Texas A&M looks really bad on paper, how Georgia ended. It was, the way we couldn't stop them looks bad in that second half. But by and large, that defense is why we've been in the games that we are. So that's, you place the importance on it, but just want to clarify that a little bit. I don't know that you can run the read option the entire time. The zone read, excuse me. They will pick up on that. Cannot be one-dimensional. And I know the zone read gives you a two-dimensional aspect, but when you do it every time, you become one-dimensional. So they know what to expect from you. Noah asked any updates on Alston. I don't have any personal updates. Last I heard, Hugh said that he was still questionable for the week. I don't think you should expect him unless something else has come out that I've not been privy to. It's been a very busy day for me. 1997, Jeffs, was the last win there. It's a great bit of history to point out. So we have, don't you count last year's win in LSU or 2 years ago's win as a night win? Is it simply because the game ended, at or it started in the middle of the day? I think if it ends at night, it's what it is, right? I can't remember what time that started. Was that a night game too? But Here's the point. Auburn winning in Baton Rouge doesn't happen if we're still just trying to figure out those little details about it, except for 2 years ago. So not a lot is in Auburn's favor here. Can we all agree on that? Really, the cards are stacked against them. They have had 2 weeks to prepare, to get healthy, to get a game plan on offense that's going to work against their defense. Is our defense ready to combat their offense? Hugh said it best. You really got to focus on holding them to field goals because you're not going to stop them from scoring the entire night. To me, the game plan and the way to win this game is pretty straightforward. The question is, can and will Auburn do it? You're going to help us figure that out this evening. Noah predicts that we'll get a lot of passing yards today, meaning, I guess, the game time. Sure, I hope so. You know, I had to eat crow a little bit when I claimed after the Texas A&M games that we would not go below 100 passing yards again. We did it. And boy, that was a hard pill for me to swallow because I didn't think we could do that twice, but we did it. The Georgia game has given you hope for the rest of the year, and it should. It absolutely should. Now, what can't happen is a bunch of different things. We can't overreact if we have a bad game against LSU in Baton Rouge after a bye week. You would think the conventional thinking would be, hey, you should be a little bit more ready. All those things are working maybe a little bit more in your favor. Not so much the case when you're in Baton Rouge. We also can't get overhyped if we do win because this LSU team is not without its deficiencies and without its issues as well. Everybody predicted LSU to everybody. A lot of people, more than usual, picked LSU to win the division and represent the West in the SEC championship game, and rightfully so. I did as well, too. That doesn't seem to be the case anymore. They've lost to Miami. They've lost to Ole Miss. So there's a lot with this LSU team that is not 100% sound, but is it enough? That's the big question. Seahall says you want the defense to play not to lose so the offense can play to win. That is certainly an interesting take on that. I don't know that I agree with it, but sure. I'm open to things if it works. Daniels is Jaden Daniels, and we'll bring up some of their personnel here in a second and talk through them a little. Jaden Daniels is balling out. We can at least contain and slow him. We can beat them. Really, it's more than just containing him. It is keeping that offense off the field as much as possible. Auburn has to create and maintain a run game, which they've been able to do from the outside. The inside is where it has really, really lacked, and thus it's not a very thorough and sound run game yet. Got to control the line of scrimmage, got to control the clock, got to keep their offense off the field as much as possible. And when they get on the field, you have to get stops. Really, the stops would amount to holding them to field goals and then hope that your offense can keep pace. That's really, I mean, I hate to be simplistic tonight, but that's kind of what it amounts to. And I think everybody sees that. And so there's a lot of energy and hype around this game, but there's not also been a lot of discussion, I feel like, as much as would be around this game, because I think everybody sees where we are heading. Now, come 48 hours, because we'll be about almost the end of the second quarter, maybe the middle of the second quarter, by the end, by the time we get to game time that in 2 days. So we'll know a little bit then. Big Sip says, I'm predicting our defense will have at least 3 turnovers. They are havoc at doing so. Listen, if you're not betting on Jalen Simpson to get a interception, as long as he plays, then you're not betting money correctly. He's proven 4 out of the 5 games that he's going to get an interception. And odds are he'll do it again. Maybe not in this game, but he will do it again at some point. He is having an outstanding year holistically but definitely as a defensive back in terms of interceptions. So, okay. Keep your commentary coming. We want to hit some of your comments, questions, derogatory rebuttals about this, but let's dive into some discussion about the actual game. And to do that, we need to talk about personnel. We're not going to go into the full depth chart here, but I want to do is share my screen with you guys like we typically do. So I'm going to bring that up here and then to the larger format. We're going to look at ESPN's data here. So I think we've got most of the players turned off. There's a very interesting shot of Brian Kelly right there. I don't know if you guys can see my cursor, but I can't, obviously. So if you look at the matchup predictor, again, this is done by quote unquote ESPN analytics, how analytical it is. You do the math. You can see the percentage right there of confidence that Auburn's going to win this game. 24%, 75% in LSU's favor. I would say this is a reflection of LSU's offense and being in Baton Rouge. If this were in Auburn, I would say this would be probably more of a 60-40 split at this point. But you can only play where you're scheduled to play. Game is at 7 p.m. Eastern time on ESPN. 3-2 Auburn, 4-2 LSU, still ranked number 22. If Auburn can get the upset, it will be their first ranked victory. Yes, that is correct. Ranked victory of the season. So, looking at that, let's look at some season leaders here. And if you're interested, you can see game time, temperature, and we'll mention the line. The line is only 11 points in LSU's favor. When you see that prediction right there, you would think the line would be a little bit heavier in LSU's favor. I think that kind of speaks to the questions about LSU, not necessarily as an offense, but as a team. If you look at over under 60 points, so that can maybe help you guess where everybody anticipates the scoring to be with the differential. You're probably looking somewhere in the 35 point range for LSU, in the low 20s, mid 20s for Auburn is what they're anticipating right now, given that kind of context. Look at the season leaders. Peyton Thorne, obviously there's not a lot to dive into there, so we won't, but you can have, it's not good. He knows it. We know it. The coaches know it. No need to belabor the point. But what you should be interested in is Jaden Daniels. 132 for 181, almost 2,000 yards on the season. He is having a great year, and that is very impressive. So he will definitely pass that during this game. What's even more impressive is how he's taking care of the ball. 19 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. So keep this in mind, folks, that he will be likely, given Auburn's propensity to intercept the ball, have that ratio go down just a little bit. Now, if he throws a bunch of touchdowns, it's going to help him even further. So, but let's see if we can help him out by not improving, but making that ratio a little bit worse. Rushing leaders, Jarquez Hunter starting to get a little bit more of a groove, is now finally the rushing leader, but not in a great sense. Diggs for LSU, you can see right there, almost 500 yards on the season, 4 touchdowns. And receivers, no shock here. We know that Jay Fair has been the favorite target of Peyton Thorne, and rightfully so. And Malik Neighbors is the big name out of LSU. They always have that one guy. I don't care if it's Justin Jefferson. You could probably name a bunch of ones going back in LSU's history, but they always have that one big wide receiver. Neighbors is essentially that. All right, last little bit here. We'll come back and address some of your comments and questions if you've got them. Total yards and just season stats here. Team stats. Total yards that Auburn is gaining on the year. It's a little bit higher than I thought it would be, to be honest with you. 358 to LSU's 543. Do you understand why everybody is saying you can only hope to hold them to field goals? Quite impressive. Passing yards, 156 for Auburn. It has gotten better even with the last 2 games. Rushing yards, 202. Fairly evenly balanced. LSU, look at theirs. 337 passing, 210 rushing. Not really that. Well, I'm about to sneeze here. Excuse me. Not the biggest differential we've seen this year, but it's big enough. Excuse me, guys. But you can see that differential is very much in the favor of the passing game. Yards allowed. Here is the big thing that we want to look at, because we've looked at total yards that are gained. Let's compare it to each other's yards allowed. Auburn's allowing 322. LSU is gaining 548. Something's going to give there. Who gets closer to each other's average? It's probably going to be more in the favor of LSU there. So you're probably hoping to keep them below 400. If you do that, your average goes up. But I think that's a successful night against LSU in Baton Rouge. They are allowing 448. So this is going to be an interesting thing to watch, is how maybe Auburn's offense can also maybe have their numbers improved a little bit against an LSU defense that's been a little bit suspect. They're allowing more passing yards than rushing, which is not in Auburn's favor because they need to establish a run game here. Same thing for Auburn in terms of how that breaks down. So that is, I'm going to bring this all back up over to here. That's some of the information about the game. We've talked about storylines within the game. We have talked about leaders and statistics. And the other thing, I think I always forget to mention this, if you want to know how the games have broken down, we all know it. We got a win against UMass, Cal, Samford, and then losses at Texas A&M and Georgia. LSU with a win over Grambling, Mississippi State, Arkansas, lost at Ole Miss, and Missouri. I think earlier I said they lost to Miami. That had LSU, Texas A&M on the brain. So 2 losses. Sorry, because I forget that they played. They did. Hold on. Let me pull something up here. I knew they had a second loss, and I'm just getting the wrong one here. Florida State. That's who they lost to, and Florida State looks like a pretty good team. So that's a very respectable loss for them overall. All right, let's see here. Any commentary about that? Ready to run over the corn dogs? Can we all address how oddly everything smells like corn dogs there? It's weird, man. I until I went, I just played along with the gag. It's real, man. It is real. LSU fans have admitted they don't know, they don't understand it. LSU hasn't faced a true defense yet. I bet FSU's defense is probably no slouch. Ole Miss typically has decent, but in that game, you definitely didn't see it, and I don't know how it's looked overall this year. Missouri probably not known for their defense as well. Arkansas was supposed to be known for their defense, which they nearly won the game. So there's that. Yeah, so maybe they haven't seen the strongest of defenses yet. Auburn may be their strongest tests thus far. So losses to FSU and Ole Miss, very respectable losses at this point, and still a lot on the table for LSU, and still a lot on the table for Auburn, but not as much, and it's a bigger, tougher hill to climb. So with that put in right there, let's talk about the biggest portion of this show. I'll remember to leave that part up so I don't forget about it. We can reference it again. But from this point, let's talk about predictions, not your score predictions. Hold it. What we're going to try to do is walk through every little corridor of making a score prediction and go from there, and maybe walk to some semblance of everything. So let's start here. We're going to talk about offense first. What do you guys think about how many points will be scored by Auburn in this game? Now, I know that seems confusing. You're like, Kyle, you're basically asking for a score prediction. But the way I phrase it is, how many points do you think Auburn, as we currently understand it of its offense, is capable of scoring against LSU, what we know about them in Baton Rouge? Let's just talk about that point. And because what this will do when we go through the other pieces will help you kind of work through how did I get to that number. But what's your prediction? How many points is Auburn capable of scoring? As of late, hasn't been a lot. We looked at Auburn a little bit earlier. I'll give you their scoring breakdown over the last few games. 59, 14, 45, 10, and 20. You're probably looking, in my book, somewhere in the range of the mid-20s, which is kind of how it broke down if you looked at where the line is for this game and where the over-under is for this game. It kind of probably puts Auburn in the mid-20s range. Is that enough to beat LSU? Probably not, unless the defense just absolutely balls out. We got predictions of 17, 30, 24 points with help from the defense. And so that's why I was asking about offense in this one. So make sure when I may have not said it clearly, but that's why I'm asking specifically about the offense. How many points do you think they're capable of scoring? So I'm saying somewhere in the mid-20s. So that means 2 touchdowns and 2 field goals. And I could definitely see, but we're talking about the offense, the defense contributing to that to push that up into the mid, even if it's like you still get 2 more field goals off of a turnover or something like that. But that's kind of how I see it potentially shaking out. 2 touchdowns, 2 field goals, and maybe a little bit of help from the defense is kind of where I see the scoring breakdown for us at this point. Auburn could score as many points as they want if they would just get on the same page. Easier said than done. Still a lot going on that team. We will get there, Seahall. Don't jump ahead. Don't jump ahead, sir. We will get there. All right, next question in the offensive realm. How many passing yards and touchdowns will Auburn have in this game? So, I had to eat crow a few weeks ago. That's what I want you guys to answer. How many passing yards and touchdowns will Auburn have in this game? I ate my crow when I said we would not score or we would not gain less than 100 passing yards 2 games in a row. It's now a trend, folks. Here's the caveat. We saw Auburn's offense really make a concerted effort to do things that worked last game and concentrate on that and not force, whether it's Peyton, offensive line, wide receivers into situations that were less favorable. Happened a few times, but there was a concerted effort to make things a little bit more improved, maybe simplified is a correct term there. With that in mind, you got to think against an LSU defense that's given up some yards passing, that opens up opportunities for Auburn. We've got a prediction of 200, 210, and 2 touchdowns. So he says 100 yards and 0. Well, at least we broke 100. For me, I was very discouraged by that 2 games in a row of less than 100 passing yards. I got to believe and got to have faith that we're going to break that in this game against LSU, especially with 2 weeks of prep time for that. So I'm going to go real conservative here and say 125 passing yards and 1 passing touchdown. I think it's highly likely because it could be something as simple as a flip out at the goal line, which I know will send people into a tizzy, but it could be as simple as that. So that's my prediction there. A lot of people jumping ahead. Hold on, folks. Hold on. 86, 3 touchdowns, 250 yards, maybe so. That'd be a good night. Here's the thing. If Auburn gets more than 250 passing yards in this game, they're going to win. I'm just going to say it. They're going to win because they're going to get some type of running game going that'll push them close to 400 yards, and that will put them in position to win the game. Maybe not win it, but in position to win. Next question on the offensive side of the ball. How many rushing yards and how many rushing touchdowns will Auburn have against LSU? Let's talk about context again, what we just looked about in the LSU averages for the year. Their strength on defense seems to be stopping the run, which is not what Auburn needed to hear. They needed to hear that they could have a favorable condition to establish a run game, to keep the clock in their favor, to keep that offense off the field. It's going to be tough sledding for this offensive line, for the quarterback, managing the situation, for the running backs. Going to need special performances from Jarquez, Jeremiah Cobb, Brian Battie. All those guys are going to have to step up a little bit better, in my opinion. think still in the realm of what we were predicting 232, 252, 180 with quarterback help at 2 touchdowns. So you're saying one of them is a quarterback rush? Maybe so. Noah says 223 rushing touchdowns. Georgia was good at stopping the run, and we did pretty good. It was surprising what we were able to accomplish against the strength of Georgia. What was sad was what we weren't able to exploit against the weakness of Georgia. So, I think we're going to get a rushing touchdown. I think we will break. I think we'll break 200 yards eventually. I think it'll be tough sledding the entire night, though. So if you kind of put those two together, you're finding me in a situation where I'm predicting in the close to the 400 yard total, but it's probably like 375 in all in total for total offensive yards. But I think we get a rushing touchdown, probably going to be Jarquez. Hopefully it's an exciting one and not just like a goal line stand one. It'll be like a nice breakaway one, but that's kind of how I feel the situation going right now. So on that same vein, let's talk about specific players here now. Who's going to be the top rusher for Auburn in this game? Is it a simple question? Maybe. Or is it? We've seen great games from Peyton Thorne, Robbie Ashford. Jarquez has not had his great game yet, but he's getting better. Brian Batiste had a couple of really good games. For now, we think Damari is out. Jeremiah Cobb, could he be utilized and have some success in those sweeps that they're running with him? So who's going to be your top rusher for Auburn? What is your prediction right there? That's funny. I saw that. Cobb hasn't ran the ball in the last 3 games, New Tiger says. It's true. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen now, especially with Damari potentially still being hurt. Hunter, Brian Batiste. Seems like we're all over the place, which I think is reflective. I think it's reflective of how nobody's really taken the bull by the horns here as a running back or as a rushing quarterback and made that part of the game theirs. The best game of the season has been by Peyton Thorne. Let that sink in. Now, that was a great game, and I'm not taking a knock at him because I'm happy to see he's got a little bit of legs to him. But we got to have more support from the running back room. So doesn't seem to be a consensus. I'm going to probably say Jarquez just because it feels like he's due at this point. And that's the easy answer, I know, but it's my answer. Last question we're going to ask in the offensive realm. Who is Auburn's top receiver on the evening? I know we're all not super thrilled, optimistic about the passing game right now, and you have good reason to not be that way. But what say you? Who's going to be the top receiver? Right now, your top receiver on the season is Jay Fair. He and Peyton Thorne have a really good connection, very reminiscent to me of Ryan Davis and Jarrett Stidham. I think that is a really key one there. We've seen Rivaldo Fairweather and Peyton Thorne hook up a little bit as well. That's a strong take there. We've also got a few others that are really just kind of waiting for their moment to seize that moment that they're getting. You got Shane Hooks falls in that category. If he could stay healthy, Javarius Johnson. Auburn is a third wide receiver away / receiving tight end from becoming that third guy, I think, to becoming a much more formidable passing attack than we give them credit for. Will it be the best receiver be a person out of the backfield, getting the ball in Brian Batiste's hands, maybe in the flats on a swing route? Maybe. Just maybe. Fairweather. That was well played, sir. Well done. Brown. I think Camden Brown, I'd love to see him step up in a big way. This is one area I think it's a little bit easier because you haven't really seen somebody besides Fair or Fairweather. So your selection is fair either way. Oh, I wish I had done it. No, wait a minute. Hold on. Actually, I think I got, what I should have done is let me try that one more time. Your selection is fair either way. There you go. So I forgot I had those here, or it could be those things. I need to start utilizing those a little bit more. That'd be funny. Anyway, fair weather or surprising coy. Yeah, it could be. What's up, Grant Lloyd's Burner? Thanks for hanging out with us. Shorter will be ready. Shorter. So Jair Shorter, Shane Hooks. Those are probably your two names you're still hoping will step up, but yeah. How does Stan says, how does Thorne regress 200 yards from last year? He says receivers. Now, are you saying 1,200 yards in total from last year that he's regressed? Well, he hasn't finished the year yet, so we can't see that. It's not just receivers. It's not just the offensive line. It's the whole package. You can't blame one person or unit on this. It's a problem that's still being addressed and fixed right now. We are all waiting on Shorter as well to kind of become that third guy. He could definitely be that candidate. So, I'm going to put my category. I'm going to be real simple and easy tonight. Our leaders of what they've been thus far, Jay Fair, and I said Jarquez Hunter. So that's kind of where I'm gonna put it at right now. All right. So offense, we're not really excited about it. We're not really hopeful about it. Let's talk about what we are hopeful for right now. And that's the defense. And that's pretty much where your matchup is of interest tonight for Auburn and LSU. Who's going to win? Their offense, our defense. So let's answer the question a little bit better. Not your score prediction, but the question is, how many points is LSU capable of scoring against what we know about this current Auburn defense? Remember our context. Well over 500 yards. I think it was pushing into the close-ish area of 600. It was like at 5, or was it 540? You know what? We can go back and look. Let's go back to the drawing board here and look for ourselves. Total yards for LSU is 550, 548, so 550. And majority of that has been passing. And that is not Auburn's weak point, but if that's the area where they're giving up more yardage. So how many points is LSU capable of scoring against Auburn in Baton Rouge at night against this defense? To me, it feels like a situation where they're gonna, you just go ahead and pencil in 3 touchdowns. The question becomes, how many field goals can you force them to take? If Auburn can hold them to 2 or less made field goals and they only give up 3 other touchdowns, you're sitting at a 27-point LSU Tiger team. It's not out of the realm of possibility to hold them there, even if they have a lot more yardage. That's kind of the window Auburn needs. So if you pencil in 3 touchdowns, 2 field goals, 27 points, that's kind of what I'm sitting at right now. It's what I'm hoping, but I think they're going to get into the 30s eventually. In fact, it may just be 30. So I'm going to say like 30 points. 28, 17, 31, 17. We slow them down. There you go. LSU will have to get more than 2 turnovers on us to get over 30. Maybe so. 31. So we're not asking for predictions just yet, New Tiger. Settle down now. Settle down. Just the score part there. So 31. So C Hall and I are kind of in the same vicinity there. If Auburn can keep them in the 20s scoring wise, they'll have a shot to win the game. But still pretty tough to ask. All right, let's dive a little bit deeper into defense. How many passing yards and touchdowns will LSU have in this game? Let's talk about context. But what is your context? How is Jaden Daniels doing? If you need a reminder, 2,000 yards on the year, 19 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Let me use one of my favorite words of juxtapose that to Auburn's defense. While they are giving up more passing yards, it's not a significant amount, under 200 yards a game. You got guys like Jalen Simpson, if he's healthy, who has intercepted basically everybody. You got other athletes out there as well. Nehemiah Pritchett, DJ James, Keontae Scott, I think he is out. Donovan Kaufman may be back. You've got young guys like Kay and Lee, them stepping up. So how many passing yards? Again, they're 500 yards per game, 330 passing yards. This feels like Auburn has to keep them under 300 passing yards, and I don't know that they're going to be able to do it. Feels like a Malik Neighbors night. So I'm just going to say a flat 300, 380 and 4 touchdowns. And I'll say 300 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns. LSU, Jalen Hurts fan says LSU can score 52. Well, they can. Doesn't mean that they will. 303 touchdowns, 304. Seems like everybody is pretty on the same wavelength here. If we hold them to 300, we win. I don't know that 300 gets you the win. Under, like in the 270 category, that puts you in position to win, even in Baton Rouge. 300, I don't know. Anywhere close to that, I don't know. 250 and 2 touchdowns, 400 yards, 6 touchdowns is max. I think a little bit of hyperbole there, Jalen Hurts fan, but it's possible. It is highly possible they could do that. They're very amped for this game, just like we are. All right, next part of the rushing attack of the offense is the rushing attack. How many rushing yards and how many rushing touchdowns do you see them getting? For me, I look at this and normally you're hearing a lot more about LSU's rushing attack, and I didn't even know the name of their leading rusher, Diggs. 81 carries for 488 yards. Maybe he's going to use that as message board material now. 2 touchdowns. It doesn't seem like they're having a lot of success. Jaden Daniels, I don't know what his rushing touchdowns are, but obviously we know he can use his legs, and that's probably going to be a hard thing to factor in to this game. So if as a team they are rushing for 200 yards a game, you're probably looking at one of their running backs getting close to 100. Jaden Daniels also close to 100, which pushes them close to their total. Really, if you can kind of keep that in my mind where it normally sits on their average, but have them underperform on passing a little bit, I think that'll kind of make their offense panic a little bit. And because they're not as proficient at home against Auburn and make a few more mistakes, you might find yourself in position to win. It's a lot of ifs, though, 105 and 0, 120 and 1, 152 touchdowns factoring in Daniels. That's fair. 132, 141. Yep. So I think we all assume they're going to break 100, right? Probably guaranteed 150. Holding them right at that 200 mark, I think, is going to be key there. All right. So last few things on defense. Got working good with time right now. Ooh, did I get away from you guys? No, I'm still on the screen. I thought I closed myself out there by accident. Last few things here on defense. Let's ask this question. Who will be Auburn's top tackler in this game? Who will be Auburn's top tackle getter? Now, you would hope we're hearing a name like an edge rusher, defensive end, a defensive tackle like Marcus Harris, meaning that they got after the quarterback. If they are one of our leading tacklers, we're having a good night. A lot of the times, I often assume, probably wrongly, that if you've got defensive backs as your leading tacklers, that means that you were allowing too many completions, unless they were just being highly aggressive and coming up on blitzes and things like that, or just making great plays. To me, this feels like a night where your leading tackler is going to be one of your defensive backs, and probably going to be like Nehemiah Pritchett, Kaden Lee, DJ James. Probably DJ James is where I'm going to lean on who's your leading tackler, just given how successful they are as a passing game. So Asante, Adibi, maybe Simpson if he's healthy. Asante. Look, Asante is the easy answer, and it's not a bad answer. But my gut tells me it's not going to be Asante. And I think if Asante is, I think we had an okay night. He's definitely got to make some plays because he's become that type of player for us. But we've got to, I think if Auburn's leading tackler comes from that defensive line area, you might have something. You just might. All right, last question. So this one's kind of like a 3-parter, so answer it however you want to, but these are the special things from the game. I want to know for Auburn's defense, how many sacks, fumbles. You can do fumble recovers or cause, however, forced fumbles and fumble recoveries, however you want to break that down. Just say fumbles. How many interceptions in this game? These are crucial things. Drive changing, momentum shifting, humongous swings of energy that Auburn has to have to silence for at least a minute that LSU crowd. They have got to get to the quarterback and get some sacks, rattle him, force him into mistakes where he throws interceptions, which he's not prone much to do, but Auburn is prone to get. But we also have to create opportunities, force some fumbles, and then recover them as well. What do you think? To me, I think it's a safe bet that you go ahead and predict Auburn to get an interception. I think you're probably safe to assume Auburn will at least get 2 or 3 sacks. If they get up above 5, they're having a good night. If it does feel like Auburn will get a fumble or at least cause one or something like that. Got to win the turnover battle. And part of winning the turnover battle is creating our own. And that was something that the last year's team struggled a lot with. 3 sacks, 2 fumbles, 1 INT, 3-2-2. 3 sacks, 1 fumble, 2 interceptions, 0 fumbles, 1 interception. Special teams, TDs, maybe. Hold your horses. We haven't gotten there yet. A bone-crushing hit by JD, maybe. I say we get 1 sack because Jaden Daniels will throw the ball away. We'll get 1 INT and we'll throw a fumble, and I'll throw a fumble in there too. It does feel like Auburn's going to be able to walk away with 2 turnovers in this game. I think the real difference is if they create 3 turnovers, whether that's 2 fumbles, interception, 2 interceptions, or just 3 interceptions. If you get 3 interceptions, I think Jaden Daniels is having a rough night, and that's a good thing for us. But for now, I'm going to predict an interception. A forced fumble, I don't know if we'll recover it. And at least, I'm going to go on a limb. 4 sacks. I think we get to him enough, but not enough to make the biggest impact that we needed in the game. All right, we are at 487. 487. Kyle, wow, that was like dyslexia. 847. Special teams plays, we do have a few extra minutes here, so let's walk through each of these real quick. I know this is where some of you check out, but let's walk through it. It will help you in the game. How many punts is Auburn going to have in this game? Oscar Chapman has been an MVP of sorts in this season. And maybe a way to think about this is how many punts do you think Auburn can allow? Like how many punts is too many, which means Auburn's offense isn't moving the ball at all. To me, I think if we punt more than 4 times, that is not a good sign for the offense. I think we've got to keep it below 4. You got to do that. We got 5, 3, 5, 5. 5 is the consensus here, it seems like. Here's what you do know is that if we do punt it away, he's going to boom it. He's a great punter. All right, here is the questions, probably the most interesting from special teams. How many field goals will Auburn attempt and make? How many field goals will Auburn attempt and make? Seeing if I can very quickly pull up the Auburn stats on this particular page so that we can look at them together. Statistics. There we go. Special teams. We are looking for kicking. Alec McPherson is 18 for 18 on extra points. He is also 5 for 5 on field goals. Will he miss one in Baton Rouge? If there's a place where you're going to miss one, Baton Rouge, Death Valley is one of those places you could see it happening. I'm predicting, I think earlier I said 2 field goals in this game. That's where I kind of see it. I'm going to predict we're 2 for 3. I think he does take his first miss because we have to get a little bit brave with how far we need him to kick to keep us into the game. So you guys are sharing some picks here. I don't know where it ended. We got 3 for 3, 3 for 3, 5, 4, 4 for 4. If he's kicking and making 4 field goals, hopefully with some touchdowns there, that might be good. 3 field goals, 3 made, 2 and 2, 18 for 18. Extra points, yes. Anyway, so there you go. That's kind of a perspective on field goals. I think 2 for 3 on the night. And finally, the thing that we are all waiting for, the thing that we are all chomping at the bit for, because all we heard was what great athletes we have on punt returns, kick returns. It kind of excused punt returns because they have lost like 3 guys now at this point. Coy Moore is back there. Nothing against him. It's just he was not first choice clearly for the coaches. So you got to work with what you got. We've heard that Brian Battie, and we've seen some great runs on kickoff returns from him. We're waiting for this dude to bust one out. If there's ever a time for a kick return for a touchdown, this is the moment. If Auburn can score 2 touchdowns, 2 field goals, get a INT, a pick 6, and then get a kick return, that might be what pushes them over the edge for a win and pushes them close to that 30 mark of points, which I think is where they need to be to win this game. So if you got some thoughts on that, please share them. We're sitting at 51 minutes on the night. All right. It's the moment you've been waiting for. It's the moment we've been building for. We have talked about offense. We have talked about defense. We have talked about special teams. We have talked about the storylines leading up to the game, about the game, for the future of this series, all of that in between. Every angle that we could possibly think of right now in the chat. Lock it in. Your final score for Auburn versus LSU. Hopefully we've helped you make an informed decision about all this. What say you? Your score prediction. Who wins? What's the score? Lock it in now. You kind of have been able to piece together where I'm sitting at. I think Auburn has to keep LSU at the 30 mark, below the 30 mark to win the game. Can they do that? It doesn't quite feel like they can to me. That's not saying that they're going to have a bad night, but I'm thinking it's a 30-point night minimum for LSU. I could see Auburn getting into a mid-20s area eventually. I'm going to predict with my final score, LSU 30, Auburn 24. They do lose in Baton Rouge, and I hope that I'm wrong. 30-24, the loss in Baton Rouge. They have shown that they can compete with the best in the SEC and nearly beat them. So why couldn't they against the Mighty Tigers of LSU in Baton Rouge? 28-17, 31-17, 31-27, 42 to 24 LSU. So that's a prediction for Auburn. We got we got 2 predictions for Auburn. Corey is very optimistic about it. Very nice. 31-28. LSU wins 45-23. Here's the reality. Jalen Hurts fan is probably going to be right. But I do legitimately see a world where Auburn makes this game a lot more interesting than I think the prognosticators think it might be. You see that 75 confidence percentage that on ESPN's website that they think LSU is going to win. It might get ugly sometimes, but I feel like we're going to continue taking a step in the right direction, put a better foot forward on the road in LSU. Even that's a tough task. But I hope that when we get to the final score, it's in the respectable column, such as 30-24. You can only hope to contain that offense. I think we addressed this last show, Jalen, that you are an Auburn fan. But why are you more of a Jalen Hurts fan than an Auburn fan? Let us know. You can do whatever you want, man. It's just you have to understand how weird it is for me to read Jalen Hurts fan and not associate you with Bama, which I think is what you're acknowledging here. So, all that being said, we have talked about everything. There's your score predictions. There's my score prediction. It's locked in 30-24. What else is on your mind with our last few minutes that we have here tonight? I want to give you, while you're getting those comments and questions in, let me give you a perspective on what's happening next here at E2C Network. Obviously, always stay tuned on social media here on YouTube, especially for more content. You need to be following because we put out a bunch of shorts and things like that on social media, but also YouTube. We got our post-game show. It's set for like 10:30 right now, but it'll be right after that. I know you guys have a lot of options now for post-game shows. We started doing this YouTube channel. We were the only ones doing it. Now all the big players are doing it. So I know you have a lot of options. I hope that you'll be able to find time to choose and check in with us, or at least come by on the replay, but we hope that you can join us live. It's usually a fun show. Will it be a therapy session? Will it be a celebration? We'll find out, but we're going to discuss it after the game. Sunday nights, the Auburn Experience Podcast live recording, episode 54. Hopefully I'll see Austin Scott if he's feeling better. And we'll be talking about sports, culture, and family at 9 Eastern time. Don't miss that. It's a fun show. It is the flagship show of everything we do here at E2C Network because it covers the whole Auburn experience. All right. What do you guys got on your mind to end the show here? You got a little less than 5 minutes. So do we cheer for Philly? Is that what you're asking? We cheer for Philly because they've been using our Eagles a lot, which is a pretty cool. I personally kind of like it. And we've discussed it on previous shows that some Auburn fans don't like, and I understand why. I believe that since both sides know this is the last year playing the game, it's going to be physical and grown man game. Hopefully that equates to a lower scoring matchup, which would bode well for Auburn. We'll get some recruits to come in and take a look at us next weekend. Folks, if you're not coming to Auburn next weekend, you are missing out. Basically, every sport that is active right now is going to be home. I think it's equestrian, soccer, volleyball, and softball. I don't know if the tennis teams are in town. I doubt it. But football as well. And it's a night game. Great fall weather. What more do you need? It looks like the rain's going to hold off right now. Come give these recruits a good showing at Tiger Walk, all of it. I've been hoping for this this Ole Miss game to be a night game. It's going to be a good day. Honestly, I think we get blown out, but if it's a game where both offenses are struggling horribly, I think we could sneak a win, but just don't see it. And I understand that. You know, what I don't like is when people are just being blatantly like just pessimistic about it and just being, oh, we're terrible. But, you know, as we've talked about, and you have been tonight, you know, there's room for Auburn to have success against LSU. Is it likely? Seems pretty slim, but there is room. This isn't a case where a Grambling State comes up against LSU and LSU beats you by 72 points. This is Auburn versus LSU. As much as Auburn has fallen over the last few years, it is still SEC versus SEC. There is so much riding on this game, even this year, and there's a lot of strong potential for what could happen in this game. And well said. Right now, and I think when we talk about this a lot too, what you're talking about, but believing in Hugh Freeze and the Auburn, I think some people feel like we're just pushing aside this season. No, that's not what's happening, but we're understanding what's going on this season and what has to take place because we made some choices that we shouldn't have made 2 or 3 years ago. So all that being said, it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to talking with you after the game, rain or shine, sad times or happy times. It's always fun to get together with you all and talk about this stuff. Hope to see you on the post-game show. Hope to see you this Sunday night to talk about the Auburn sports, culture, and family topics on the Auburn Experience. And, of course, we'll be live on Wednesday and Thursday next week as well. You guys continue to be the best little family within the Auburn family, and we appreciate you so much for hanging out with us. Tell a friend, invite them to be part of this little thing we've got going here, and we appreciate you being a part of it too. Until we talk to you again, War Eagle.